and welcome to Game Brain, a board gaming podcast about our gaming group. I am your host for this episode. I am Matthew Robinson, the enthusiastic gamer. I am joined today by Jordan Saya and Trey Alsop. Jordan, what is your moniker again?
I don't remember.
Did we come up with a moniker for you?
We did. We talked about it.
What are you?
I don't remember. And it's not on the website. I can't even check.
Was it the dumb gamer?
I think that's right.
That sounds perfect to me.
That's right. Yeah,
and Trey, you are the
crusty gamer.
The crusty gamer, the encrusted old gamer.
Never enthusiastic about anything. Always
What's the opposite of enthusiasm?
Games aren't like they used to be back in the 70s.
Get off my gaming lawn. Welcome to a new episode. Today we are going to be reviewing what I think is an undiscovered gem of the year of our Lord 2024. That is Rise and Fall. Have not heard a lot about this in the board gaming content community, and boy oh boy do I think people are missing out, because I think this one is pretty special.
It's kind of cool.
It's really great.
Pretty cool. We're going to be getting into that in a little bit, but first let's just check in. How you fellas doing this evening?
Doing good. I just had my COVID booster, got my flu booster right at the same time, so if I just
drop dead
in the middle of this, you know what happened. But
when, like 5 minutes ago or yesterday?
An hour ago.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
No, 6 o'clock.
Aneurysm incoming.
Yeah.
You got your life alert ready to go just in case?
Yeah. RFK Jr. was right.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to die.
We're all in trouble. Jordan, how have you been in the lately times?
Been doing well. I had COVID, so...
Where'd you get it?
I got it from you.
Oh,
what do you know?
I'm so sorry.
No, but thank you, because I didn't have to get a booster. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't need it, but now I still have to get a flu shot. But yeah, no booster, because my children gave me COVID, and then I gave COVID to Jordan.
It was a delight.
During our Palm Springs weekend, which was cut 24 hours short because of COVID.
Yeah. I've never felt more connected to you and your family.
You were literally swimming in our germs.
That's right. That's right.
You were infested with Robinson germs.
Great.
Lovely. Yeah, it's been a while. I haven't been on in a while. Jordan has been on in a while. Trey, you've been on more recently than the two of us, I think, but it's still been a minute.
It's been a while.
We have played...
We should thank Ben for keeping things going.
Yeah, we should.
I mean, Ben has kept the lights on in this podcast for a couple of years now, and we all owe him a huge amount of gratitude. I am just so busy with having 2 young children, plus work, plus a new dog. And yeah, very little time for gaming, let alone podcasting. Jordan, I don't know what the fuck you do, but for some reason you don't podcast.
Well, I just moved. So.
You moved. You have a but new home. I've been there.
Beautiful new house, yeah.
I sprayed COVID all over that place.
That's right. You did. That's right. That's great. But yeah, that's it. But I want to be on more,
I would love to have you on
Yeah, it'd
more.
be great. But I also want to plug
Trey,
all the
you're on the
BenWorks.
perfect amount of time. This is you're on the right amount.
Actually,
This is about all.
could you just back it down a little bit, Trey? Just back it down a little bit.
Yeah, maybe we could maybe use 5% less. 5%, but you're close.
Almost the perfect amount of Trey, which is once a month, apparently. So.
Sorry, Jordan. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just going to plug all of Ben's work on the Instagram account, too, which is
my
great.
gosh.
And if you're not following it, you should check it out.
Look, this is Ben's podcast. We're all just living in it. I want to start out with a board gaming confession. I made a big mistake, you guys.
What'd you do?
I shit the bed. I fucked up. Made a boo-boo. I got way back into miniature painting.
Oh,
Why did I? What did I do?
So
that?
what are you painting? What brought you back?
Okay, all right. Slow down, Jordan.
yeah. Rate it in, Jordan.
Yeah, way too fast.
Calm down, dude. My son and I take on gaming projects. Okay,
Sure.
We did Cora Quest, which is a fantastic game if you have children under 6. Really great dungeon crawling game. We did the whole campaign, and then we did a whole expansion campaign. Okay.
You played that. You didn't paint it, right?
No, there's no painting.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
all
okay.
cardboard standees. But we played it, and he loved it. And we're slowly stepping up, right? And then HeroScape came out with a new version. There was a couple other games we got into, but I pre-ordered HeroScape because I was like, oh, that seems like the perfect level, which is like baby's first war game, right? It's, you take a bunch of plastic miniatures, you build an army at a certain point value, you build this awesome Lego-ish terrain, and you fight. And the rules are very simple, but they're perfect level for my son, right? So
And the characters are recognizable from other things, is that right?
No. There's so far this is
no
just
IP.
their own IP. Right?
Oh, okay, interesting.
They've had like Marvel, I think, was
Yeah,
an IP
okay.
for a minute. There's probably others, but as of right now, this is the new.
Heroes.
They haven't had a version, I think, since like 2012 or something like that. So it's been like over 10 years, and now it's like all brand new. But you could still use your old crap.
Sure.
But if you wanted the painted version, it was more than double the cost. And I'm a penny pinching parent. I'm trying to feed these kids.
That was your motivation, saving money.
Because it definitely costs way more.
It definitely costs way more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yes, it did. But I was like, that would also. My son loves drawing. He loves art. He loves drawing, painting, coloring. He's all about it. That's his favorite thing to do on the weekend. He's never allowed to use the iPad except on Sunday mornings. He has a few painting teachers on YouTube that he's obsessed with who teach him how to draw his favorite cartoon characters. And his favorite thing is to sit there and watch a video and then perfectly copy it and then like get really good at drawing different Pokemon and stuff. So I was like, painting minis is great. It's just 3D coloring, coloring book stuff. So I got the set in, and then I bought a nice little set of some Army Painter acrylics. And then I just found myself painting old miniatures and even buying a few new miniatures. And I found myself just really enjoying at night after the kids go to sleep, just sitting quietly with a podcast on and painting a miniature. And I got really into mini painting about 15 years ago in my late 20s. And I got super into it, but I was more into Gundam. I went through like a big Gundam phase. I went to Japan and I came back like obsessed with Gundam, and I just thought they were so awesome. And I got really into that hobby.
You and Viggo Mortensen, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that his? Oh, that's amazing. So yeah, so I got really into that and got pretty good. Like, I mean, like I knew all the things. I had learned all the skills. Like so getting back into this didn't take a lot. It just was like, oh, I just need new paints. Like, and wow, paints have gotten a lot better. Mm-hmm. Army Painter is an awesome speed paint set. They've got a brand new Warpaint Fanatic set. That's a really good and affordable set of acrylics. Obviously, there's also like Acryl Pro, which is like really high. Like, there's been a whole new world of fancy Kickstarter funded hobby paints and stuff that did not exist when I was in it 10, 15 years ago. And so that's been fun to just slowly get into. And yeah, my son and I are going to start doing speed paints now because I realize the acrylics are a little unforgiving for his small 6-year-old hands.
Yeah,
I think
speed paints are really great. As an intro.
Yeah, and so some people call them contrast paints or speed paints. But yeah, they're basically a one coat paint that will sort of fake your highlights and your washes all in one thing, so you don't have to do a base coat, a wash coat, and highlights.
Right. It like settles in the grooves.
Yeah,
so
but
it leaves the top light and the
that's definitely
dark.
cheating.
Yeah, it's cheating. It sort of does 3 steps at once and does none of them as well as doing them the old-fashioned way, but
pretty close.
It's pretty,
and
it's
if
pretty
you do like the zenithal priming, not to get too far into it, but like the speed painting on top of that looks really.
And if you
good.
go back and do line highlights with acrylics afterwards, it can look incredible. So anyway, I've just gone down that rabbit hole and found myself at evenings just sitting at the old table with some paints.
This doesn't sound. You start off with like you've made a huge mistake. This doesn't sound like you've made a huge mistake.
I've just taken on like a new lifestyle hobby, like which yes is I'm actually finding very relaxing, and I'm obsessed with it. And God knows the last thing I need is another like I'm finding myself watching a lot of painting tutorials on YouTube and being like, oh, I could really work on my OSL lighting, and I could really, my grading is a little, and like, oh, I've never seen this technique before. Like everybody's into slap chop now. Like I'm going to try that. That looks fun.
I haven't heard of that one, but I think the painting is, first of all, it's really fun. I've been doing it for like 3 years now. I've painted my set of Guards of Atlantis too.
Yeah.
And I've painted.
Oh God, I'm gonna have to do that when it comes.
It's great. I mean, and those minis aren't the highest quality ones, but they're okay. And I've painted through all the heroes and through my place in the Oathsworn campaign. And in the Oathsworn campaign, you fight these big monsters that are, I don't know, like the size of your hand.
Yeah, they're huge.
And I'll spend like 6 hours painting it and then 1 hour fighting it. And the ratio, one time, exactly. So it's not worth it, but it is really fun. No. It's enjoyable.
And I actually I told myself, okay, Matt, you can paint, but you're not getting into Warhammer. You're not going to build.
Okay, yeah, that's a line. That's a line.
That's a line. Right.
That's a line.
So Matt texts me yesterday.
No.
So I'm not getting into 40K standard, but there is small squad based version called Kill Team that over the weekend released their third version of it, which has a co-op and a solo mode. And it's the first like war game to ever have a solo and co-op mode. And it's definitely like, it's 8 to 10 models as a whole army, and you play on a smaller field, and it's skirmish based. Instead of army based. So I did pre-order that new core box for Kill Team, and I'm excited to get into that. And then Jordan today was telling me all about this cool new Star Wars skirmish game called
last year Shatterpoint came out, and I thought about buying it, but then I said, oh, I won't have anyone to play it with, so I didn't.
And look, my level of excitement for the game is like at a 3, but my level of excitement for painting it is like at a 10. So
That's for Kill Team?
for just anything right now.
Oh wow, okay.
but I'm excited for the games. I am. But I really am enjoying I just forgot how relaxing it is to not stare at my television or a screen or a complicated novel that I'm, and just to let my mind do literally nothing other than just like color a fantasy elf.
Yeah.
But I think like your brain needs this.
Yeah, I didn't even. It's needing it.
You discovered you found out accidentally that the thing you need in your life is actually this kind of
silence,
activity,
meditative thing.
And I bet you actually are doing a lot of thinking during that time.
Yeah.
And it's just different. It's a different kind of thinking.
Yeah.
I know, like when I'm working on a lot of projects, I do a lot of prototyping.
Yeah.
And prototyping can occupy that same space.
Like
where
crafting.
It's like, and sometimes like I'm just cutting paper. Yeah. Like you're just cutting paper over and over. I'm putting stickers on things and I'm applying this. Or I'm having to work out the art, and it occupies a different part of your brain. But you're working through some other stuff too, and and like you said, it's pleasurable.
Totally,
your brain has too much of other things that's going at it. So I think that's good. Facebook definitely thinks that I paint miniatures.
Oh, you get a lot of ads for it, huh?
Well, I get the time lapse of the people that are doing like the full like World War II dioramas. I went through a phase where I was doing a lot of Vietnam Huey searches for the thing I'm working on for the Medal of Honor Museum. So I'm getting all kinds of like these speed videos where these incredible professional modelers put together something, and it's a whole video in 60 seconds. But like I'm fascinated by this stuff because I went through a painting phase too, but unlike you adults, I did this at 13 and 14 when I was still playing Dungeons and Dragons. But like I still, when I pass the paints in the model store, I feel like the gravity, like there's I feel the gravity of that there. And like the minis now are so much nicer.
Oh my gosh, they're incredible. I just bought like a little small Warhammer set because I was at a store buying some paints and I was like, I just want to see how much better they've gotten. And I bought like a little small Warhammer set and like a little $30 3 minis. They just looked cool. I liked it was a cool color scheme. And they're incredible. They're so much better than they were even 10 years ago when I was doing I got into War Machine like 10, 12 years ago, and those are metal die cast minis, but the plastic ones that GW are doing now are really wild.
I gotta say the Oathsworn minis, especially the character minis, are really nice.
Oh, cool.
They're like really
now I'm bummed I got the standee version now that I got back into painting. I know
you could probably buy. I mean, the crazy thing about the Oathsworn ones is they all have different. You can buy this little kit that's just weapons.
Yeah,
you can attach to each mini. So if you change the weapon card they're playing with,
and then of course, if you really want to get fancy, you can magnetize all of them.
All of it.
Then do all that. You can pin them and magnetize them.
I think within the last year, I did have the Time Bandits minis in a cart.
Ooh.
Oh.
And then I did not pull the trigger. I did not pull the trigger.
But now I'm Googling
got that far of like, am I gonna get these and paint these? It seemed tempting.
Well, anyway, that was my confession of board game adjacent new thing I've gotten into in the last month or so. But this is a board game podcast. Let's talk board games. I just briefly, before we get into our plays, I want to do a little bit of we're a week away from Essen. We are heading into the peak awesome season for us Euro board gamers and us heavy board gamers. And I want to talk about some of the Essen games that are coming out that I'm excited about, that I've pre-ordered, some that I have my eye on, things that are coming soon, things we'll be talking about on the podcast soon. A couple games that have caught my eye that I've already pre-ordered some of these. Asian Tigers I have pre-ordered, which is already shipping apparently.
Nuno and Paulo,
yes, right? I'm looking it up right now. But yes, so this looks so lovely and spreadsheety. This is Nuno Bizarro Sentiero and Paulo Soledad, who you may know from wonderful games like Nippon and Madeira and Panamax and all other games that are like in my top 10, basically. I've heard this is fantastic. I'm really excited about it. Civolution, I'm also very excited about. This is, of course, the new Stefan Feld. And Paul Grogan did a playthrough of it over the weekend, and holy crap, it's much better than I thought it was going to be. I was kind of like, I don't know about this, a huge, heavy game from Stefan Feld that's like a civvy game, but I don't know. I'm pretty hyped after watching that playthrough, and it's much cooler than I expected it to be. Undaunted 2200 Callisto, maybe not necessarily an Essen title, sitting right next to us on the table right now. Might check that out after the podcast if we have a chance. Black Forest, the big Uwe box set, actually shipping in the next week or two, which is sort of his version. Uwe Rosenberg, sorry, I'm not going to just glass over his name. Glass Road over his name. This is Glass Road 2.0, basically. He's back on his bullshit with resource wheels, and we are all very excited about it.
Yep.
I love an Uwe resource wheel.
And loves a rondel.
I love a rondel, love a resource wheel. Very excited for this. I hope it is the best resource wheel he's ever done. And I just set fire to Aura et Labora Glass Road, which I would never do because those are my favorite games. What else is coming out? Joyride, which is an awesome sort of car fighting Mario Kart meets Heat game that Jordan got me into, that got me excited about. I still haven't played, but I did pre-order because it looks really fun.
I'll cover that a little bit later, but I've played it 5 times in a week. It's great.
I love that for you. Andromeda's Edge, which is sort of the Dwellings of Eldervale 2.0. That Kickstarter should be coming to me in the next week or two. The reviews, everybody seems to really like it. Everybody's saying it replaces Dwellings of Eldervale. I don't know how much people love Dwellings of Eldervale in this group.
So Very Wrong just trashed it.
Yeah, they said Dwellings is better, but also they don't like Dwellings. So.
They were kind of split.
Yeah.
Anyway, I am excited to check that out.
Those are local designers, right?
Oh, are they? Oh, okay. That's fun. Other big games that are coming out that I have not yet pre-ordered because I cannot, but I will as soon as I can. Shackleton, which I hear is everybody's saying is game of the year. Everybody's saying Shackleton Journey to the Moon, which is sort of a moon colonizing game, Euro heavy, supposed to be incredible. Saltford, which I'm
very excited about Saltfjord.
Salt Fjord, yes. Yeah. The designers of this did Santa Maria?
Santa Maria and Revive, and this game is sort of like a 2.0 of Santa Maria.
A lot of 2.0s coming out this Essen, a lot of like reiterations, which is often where you get the best games. That sounds exciting. Phoenix New Horizon, which was a game that only came on my Horizon last week. I don't know much about this one, but every reviewer who has tried it has been glowing about it. This is from Jorge J. Barroso, and he has not done any games that I've played before. But the components look really incredible. And lastly, sort of on the lighter side, but a game that Rado and a bunch of other people have been totally gushing about, is a game called Spectacular, which I hope lives up to the name. But this is one of my favorite things, which is dice placement and dice drafting. And it's supposed to play in 30 to 45 minutes and sort of be at the weight of Castles of Burgundy. And everybody is, totally flipping out over this one too. So those are my games that I'm excited about for Essen. Jordan, did I miss anything that you're hyped on?
I'm hyped for a lot of the same games as you. I'll add on Rebirth, which is another Knizia tile layer, which I can never get enough of. And the art on this one looks particularly great. The components are wonderful. And also the Lord of the Rings cooperative trick-taking game.
I know, but don't get me all hyped, because that's not even coming out till like next year.
Oh, is that not an Essen release?
They haven't even set a date yet. I think it's like Q1 next year.
Okay.
I would kill for that.
I'd take it back. It's very good.
I mean, yes, I'm very excited for that. Trey, you got any Essen games on your mind, or anything that I just mentioned that would be at the top of your pile for you?
Black Forest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The minute Uwe comes out, that's like our lives shut down. We all jump in and we just play it 100 times and find out if we're ever going to play it again. And is it going to be a game we're playing for the rest of our lives, or is it going to be, what's the game called? Not Halford.
Hallertown,
which I still love, but like we all just like decided it wasn't worth playing anymore. Which I don't know if I agree with. I just enjoy it.
Right. It's a good
enjoyable
game. We are in a good period where like we just have plenty of new games to play, and so you can move on. And also like if you're in that zip code, you're just going to play Agricola some more.
Well, that's always the problem with Uwe, right? It's like the minute we pull out an Uwe game, it for people who love Agricola, it just makes them go like, "You guys want to play Agricola?
We really should be playing that more.
Kind of be playing Agricola right now." And nothing is as good as Agricola by any designer, and Uwe is included in that.
By the way, a couple of weeks ago at Tom's, had a couple of friends that I've known since college that are kind of infrequent flyers over at Tom. Come over and trying to figure out like what's the right game to play, because they haven't played a lot of board games, blah blah blah, getting them up to speed. And Tom said, "You know what? Just bite the bullet. Let's do Agricola." And they were up for it.
Wow.
And it went great. it actually went great. Like, it was a good reminder. It was like, oh yeah, you like sometimes throwing people in the deep end actually does work. And I caught my friend Brian like 2 weeks later, and like we're sending postcards out for congressional races, and he's like, "I'm still thinking about that game. I know what I did wrong. I know what I did wrong." I was like, "You have no idea how many things you didn't do right." but you listen, you didn't start.
You have no idea how wrong you were.
Yeah, like there's so much more that you're.
That's the great thing about Agricola. You think there's only one or two things you're doing wrong. You did nothing right, but you still had a great time.
No, he didn't starve. He had a respectable. You know, he scored over 30.
Yeah, one of each animal, maybe a couple of crops. It's a good farm.
He didn't starve.
He didn't starve. That's all you need to do. Let's talk about some of our gaming experience that we've had recently. Jordan, I know you are chomping at the bite to talk about a big old TI4 game you had this weekend. You guys, we had a plan when we were in Palm Springs to play 4-player TI4, sacrilege, but we were going to do it. And that was our plan in Palm Springs. And then we all got COVID. And by we all, I mean just you and me. And we promised we would do it again. And then, of course, I couldn't because I have children and too much work. And you guys played a 5-player game, I think.
That's right.
With Paul and Ben and
John and Josh, friends of the pod, John and Josh.
And things, as they're often wont to do in TI4, got a little contentious. So why don't you tell us your journey?
Yeah, I'm a little nervous to tell this story, actually. And I'm going to try and tell a very short version of it.
The feelings are still raw.
The feelings are still raw. No, mostly I'm just worried about telling a version of it that Paul and Ben vigorously disagree with. So hopefully that's not what happens here. But effectively, we get to a place in the game. It's an agenda phase. We're going to have a vote. And the agenda might as well say 4, Ben wins the game.
This is, by the way, this is Twilight Imperium 4. Space game. A lot of voting, a lot of ship fighting. Continue.
Right.
Continue, just in case.
It's a race to 10 points. And I should be clear, Ben's at 7, I'm at 8. So I'm currently in the lead of the game.
You need 10 points to win the game?
10 points to win the game.
It's like Catan.
It's just like Catan.
In every way.
And so, this agenda, I think, might as well say 4, Ben wins the game, against, we continue playing another round. Okay. That's sort of what it,
Would everyone agree with that?
I think myself, John, and Josh all agree with that assessment.
Okay, 3 out of 5.
Ben would say, no, this means that Ben gets 2 points and goes up to 9 and then has to find his point elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And
That's factually, it's impossible to argue with that.
Right. And our view was, but it's very easy for you to find your point elsewhere. That's not going to be a problem. You're still.
He very well may have had it in his hand.
And in fact did. Right. So in any event.
As people always do when they get to 9 points in TI4.
Right, exactly. So we get to this point, and we're going to have this vote, but Paul has all the decision-making power. Yeah. Nobody can vote except for Paul and Ben.
You don't get 1 vote per person. You have a certain amount of votes based on your faction.
Right, based on your planets, the areas you control. And everyone else has used up all their votes in the first vote. I voted, everyone else voted. So whatever. It's up to Paul. And we all sit there, we discuss, what the outcome of this vote's going to be, and then we say, all right, well, Paul, it's up to you. And Paul says, he sits there for a few minutes thinking, and then he says, I want 2 points. Give me 2 points.
He was at what?
He was at 5.
Oh, wow.
So bringing him to 7. He said, give me 2 points, or I will just let Ben win the game. Mm-hmm. And he's asking for a point from me and a point from Josh.
And how does that get delivered? Or?
It's delivered by a contract card called Support for the Throne.
Everybody has 1 point they can give away.
Right.
Okay.
And it is conditional.
And you don't lose it. They just gain it.
They just gain it.
So the asking for a point thing is a standard part of the game?
Not in this way in my limited experience. I find you
usually do trade your points, but they're usually, I'll give you a point, you give me a point.
Right. It's usually a mutual
we'll both
exchange.
be ahead, and then it's up to us to fight it out.
And the other way I've seen it used, although I would say 90% of the time it's that, very occasionally it's, please don't attack me, I'll give you a point if you don't.
But Paul has made his demand.
He said this.
And he's in the back.
He's in 3rd.
Okay.
I have 8, Ben has 7, Paul and Josh both have 5.
Okay.
John has 2.
Okay.
And again, if this vote goes through, I think maybe Ben will score 1 point in the next round, I'll score 0, and Paul will really have a chance to come back. But in any event, Paul says, I want my 2 points. And I say, no, Paul, you can't hold the game hostage and just ask for 2 points and or say the game's over and give it to Ben. And so I say no, Josh says no. And then Paul, to my surprise, says, okay, and just votes for Ben to win the game and ends the game right there.
Why would you be possibly surprised by that?
I'm surprised by that because it's completely against his interest in the game. It's also because he's giving up the game entirely, right? And secondly, it's against his interest outside of the game, because this sort of demand making is not going to make you any friends in your next game of TI either. It's like you're losing both the game and the meta conversation.
I think his thought was, this is how I win the next game, because they will make this deal next time.
But I told him, frankly, I said, Paul, flatly, I think that this is extremely distasteful, and I'm never going to make this deal with you.
When you started the story, I thought you were going to say basically Paul was at 7 and was going to demand 2 points to get to 9. Paul being at 5 demanding 2 points, I'm going to be honest, hot take, I don't know if that's so crazy. I think he's like, okay, the game ends or I'm in contention. Otherwise, I'm out of contention.
You don't think I need to be in contention? I need to be in contention,
or what's the point?
Yeah,
you don't think it says, if I'm not in contention, all of you can go home? Because that's what it says to me.
I think that's TI4.
It's interesting. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if I would do what Paul did, but I don't think I would be bummed about it.
I pulled the table. I said, would you do what Paul did in any circumstance? Yeah. And everybody said no, including Ben. Ben said, I can see where Paul's coming from, but I would not do that.
I would never, because I'm always like a host, and so I feel like there's a slightly different mode that comes with that, where it's like, I invited you all to my house, I'm not going to fucking ruin the day. But like, I don't know. Is that outside the spirit of TI4? I would, not to me. And in fact, I don't think it's crazy that he wanted to get to 7. I think he still loses that game, most likely. I just think it makes it an actual chance for him to at least feel like he's in the running.
Yeah. To me, it's not about whether it certainly improves his chances if he has 2 more points. To me, it's if he goes the other way, he certainly loses and he causes everyone else to lose. And honestly, I'm a little surprised that you guys feel this way, but fair play. I mean, people have different perspectives about what is, what's in TI. I will say, and I'm curious to hear what listeners think, and they can respond in the Discord too. There are a number of posts, because I looked into this on Reddit afterwards. I was like, how do people feel about this? And a lot of people feel the way I do, and a lot of people feel the way you guys do. So I think it's a split issue.
I'm not saying I would like it, but I'm not saying I don't know if I think it's egregious.
To me, it was, I was like,
you were pissed.
I was surprised. I was like, to me, it was something that I would never do.
Well, I don't know why. Like, why did you, just by principle? Like, because I don't know if it's necessarily a bad deal for you just to each give him 1 point.
No, yeah, in principle, it was just you can't hold the game hostage.
Then you're both sort of not necessarily doing what's best for the game and doing what's best for your player image or what you think is a correct way to play TI4.
Well, but to be clear, Paul made 2 decisions, right? He made the decision to make the threat, which I think is fine. And then we said no. And I think an appropriate decision would have been, okay, what will you give me? But instead his decision was, you won't give me exactly what I want. This game is over.
I think lore-wise, that also totally tracks for TI4. I mean, I think historically there have been people who said, you do this or we all die. Or I go nuclear.
Yeah,
I'm surprised.
Let me get my 2 cents in here. This is kind of my problem with a lot of games like this.
That's why you would never play those games.
Well, yeah, and also they do kind of generate these feelings consistently, right? Like there's certain games that generate these feelings consistently. I do think you're probably misunderstanding Paul to a certain degree, which is I think Paul, it's interesting, your view this is oh, you've damaged your reputation, Paul. It's actually what Paul has done is he has reinforced a table image that when he says he's going to do something, he will follow through on it. He set the terms. Now, you may feel like it's unreasonable, but, you should now know going forward in games that Paul means it when he says those things. Now, is that ethical? I think we were really influenced when we played CO2 back in the day, and that kind of a similar dynamic happened there, where a single player could hold the rest of the table hostage, and that was actually part of the game design. And you could kind of make demands sometimes to get yourself in contention of the win, or else it would all go down. And I think that had a big influence on Paul. Is he's playing to win. Because here's the thing, if he doesn't do that, then he's just being a passenger on the rest of the game. He's saying
just being okay, I didn't win, but I want to watch and see who does. And some people would be like, that's the right thing to do. You didn't win. You didn't play well enough. So don't be a baby and destroy the game because you didn't play well enough until this point.
Right.
And some people would go, that's TI4. Don't let people draft too far in the back or else they'll go nuclear.
Yeah. I want to put it to you guys that I understand what you're saying, Trey, that I'm misunderstanding Paul. But I think Paul is actually misunderstanding me because I'm the audience for this threat. And to me, the outcome that this threat makes less likely is that I will play TI4 again with Paul.
Oh,
it does not make it. It is not like, oh, I will now give in to you. I mean, if he does this again, he could do it 100 times and he'd reach the same result. And so I'm wondering, does that make it bad? It's not going to actually advance his
that's
position
the interesting point.
game.
Was it the bad play long term for him?
Right.
And yeah, if the answer is there are less people who want to play TI4 with him, then very well.
Or it doesn't make it any more likely that he'll get what he wants next time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I just find it so anathema to like the way I play games.
I'm probably influenced here in that, like, I've played a number of games with you, and you often make ridiculous negotiation demands, or not demands, but you'll make them, and then we try to kind of counter them sometimes, and you shut it down. Like, you're a lawyer, you negotiate for a living a lot of times. You're only going to make a deal that feels like it's going to be a net for you. So like, I don't know. I've been on the other side of negotiations with you and have come away with hard feelings too.
Okay.
So I don't know. Paul had he had this bullet in this game to get him back into the game, and you guys didn't go for it. It doesn't surprise me. But yeah, I think it's a good point of, like, again, this is why I don't play these games a lot of times.
Yeah. I'm also like usually fine after like 8 hours of TI4 with it ending. So I'm like, okay, fuck it. Like, unless I'm like, I don't know. I mean, you probably felt like you were right. You had a real chance. Trey, before we get into our review of Rise and Fall, which we are going to do in a few moments, do you have any gaming experiences you want to talk about lately?
Listen, I've had some, really enjoyed the game we played a couple weeks ago at Harmonies. Have we talked about Harmonies?
No. Harmonies is a light 15 to 30 minute, maybe 45 minute, depending on who you're playing with. Tile laying game would be the genre, even though you're laying little beautiful semi-circles.
They're really hexes.
Hexes.
Yeah.
Johann Benvenuto. I think this is probably going to win the Spiel des Jahres this year, would be my guess. Which
I was really impressed.
It was fun
by this.
It's very quick.
It's very quick. I really like the puzzle. I have Cascadia sitting there too. There's some games I've been playing with my wife recently, trying to get her into some enjoyable nature themed games, which I think she'd be down for. I think Cascadia is the better game for non-gamers. But I think Harmonies is the more interesting game for me, at least.
It's a lot quicker too, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's also it's crunchier. The puzzle is less forgiving.
Yeah.
You really have to think ahead. It's not. I think Cascadia is a good conversational game. You can pay attention 50% and talk 50%. I think in Harmonies, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of talking.
It's a puzzle.
It's a heads down solve your puzzle game. Even though Jordan destroyed us like seemingly easily.
Absolutely. But I had a good time. Like, I got creamed in that, but I had a good times. That's
really
usually
like
a good sign because I'm so superficial. Like, I like games that I win, and I didn't win that, and I still liked it. So
it's on BGA. We should play some BGA games. It's really fun on BGA.
And then really quickly, I just want to mention, like, I think the previous time over here, we played the expansion on Anno 1800.
Which is just called Anno 1800, the expansion. And it is only in German, so it is the expansion German.
Das Expansion.
My German is perfect. But yeah, it's not even available in the States yet. I imported it.
But yeah, like my two cents on it is it's almost, the expansion is what an expansion used to be, which is that it addressed the main criticisms of the original game.
Right.
And also, it, like the Prelude expansion on Terraforming Mars, it just gets you into the game that you want to play much quicker. Like, that game played faster, you got your engine going quicker. It just got you to the finish line and the meat much quicker. So, like, it's a really smart expansion.
Yeah.
And if people, maybe bounced off it a little bit the first time they played, I thought it was a really good game.
Yeah.
It's a better game now. This is starting to feel like, to me, like, oh, okay, this is now like a top 50 game.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. Jordan does not like, he did not like original Anno, and the expansion didn't change it for him. So if you didn't really like the original Anno, I don't think the expansion can do it for you. But I think the Anno expansion, for me, does what I want an expansion to do, which is fix everything that was maybe not great about the original game and also give you more of all the stuff you already love. So it gives you a whole bunch of new mission cards, which is sort of the whole game. It gives you a whole bunch of, and that's it. It doesn't give you really any new industries or anything. Like the board pretty much stays the same. It gives you a couple new ways of making airships and boats and things like that and harbors.
But that's really almost like a balance fix, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the main thing it does, I wrote a little review of it on BGG where I compared it to the Norwegians expansion for A Feast from Odin, which to me was felt like a video game patch. It felt like a lot of people had played the game and then they came in and they did an overhaul of the system and they patched it and they nerfed things and they improved things.
Yeah.
And they just were like, oh, here's all the things that weren't great about it. Now it's maybe kind of perfect. And I feel like the Anno one did that too.
And sped up the you ramp up quicker.
Exactly. So yeah, that was the Anno expansion, which is Jordan's game of the year.
Yeah, Anno's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
I'd rather play it with the expansion than without.
Yeah, sure. There you go. Should we get into our Rise and Fall review?
Let's do it.
All right, guys. Let us talk about... So Rise and Fall is a game that was not on my radar in the slightest. I had seen the Kickstarter for 2 seconds. I remember clocking that it was the designer of Archipelago, which I thought was an interesting game, but it seemed to come and go in a time where there was probably too many other Kickstarters I was backing, and it just wasn't loud enough to get my attention, and I completely ignored it and forgot about it. Cut to a couple of years later, Jordan and Ben are talking about this game Rise and Fall, and I'm like, I've never heard of that game before. And then I Googled it, and I was like, oh, I totally remember seeing that on Kickstarter. Oh, that's the Archipelago guy. Oh, and they were like, oh, it's coming next week. I can't wait. And I was like, I don't really care.
Yeah. This was one of my most anticipated games of the year. And I was surprised that you weren't that interested in it. Yeah. But obviously, you flipped on it. Trey, you also backed it on Kickstarter.
I did, right. Like, compared to you, I backed so few things. Yeah. It was because Ben pointed it out to me.
Right.
But I loved Archipelago so much. Love made me still not like. I was just fascinated by
Archipelago is more fascinating.
I'm fascinated by Archipelago. You play these games and you're like, I don't feel like I ever win. I never feel like I really understand the systems.
Let me give you the stat sheet on the game really quick before we jump in. So this is Rise and Fall 2024. It is designed by Christoph Bollinger, who has done 2 very different games that are beloved. One is Archipelago and the other is Earth Reborn, which is when I first got into the hobby was like the Ameritrash skirmish game hotness.
Oh, really?
Which is a really interesting and great game. When I first got into the hobby, Earth Reborn and Claustrophobia were like the 2 hot games. This was 2010. They both came out, I believe. Okay. And Earth Reborn is a fantastic old school, kind of Space Hulk kind of game. And then he did Archipelago, which Trey, you tell us about. What was Archipelago like?
Well, it's a game in
2012.
It's a modular game in which you're building the map as you play, and it's a series of islands, hence Archipelago. But it's all themed as you're doing colonialist expansion, kind of like in the Caribbean.
Yeah, this is a game that would never get produced anymore.
Probably not,
the theme is egregiously colonial.
It is explicitly colonial, but it was not unaware of what it was doing.
It was much more honest than like Mombasa or some of its other.
I recall there were brown slave cubes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it, unlike something like the earlier versions of Puerto Rico that gloss over it,
right?
It kind of explicitly is like, no, you're playing invaders mostly, and there are native populations on the islands, and their discontent is a main mechanism within the game, and if it gets to a certain point, everyone loses. And in fact, most games actually have one of the players secretly playing as a revolutionary or a separatist, something like that. So it's very possible that one of the players is actually playing to raise the discontent to the point where all of the islands revolt, and then that's a victory condition for them.
If I remember correctly, this is one of those games where all the players can lose. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In the event of
it's the rare Euro that has a nobody wins ending potential.
And I'm not saying that's listen, I don't think, colonial simulators are going to be problematic, but it was at least like honestly looking at it, it was modeling something.
It wasn't
there.
just using it as a varnish for mechanics. It was actually utilizing the mechanics, albeit to your own, wherever it landed on your moral scale, if that's right or wrong, it still was not attempting to, quote unquote, whitewash the history of it.
Right.
And the mechanics were pretty damn interesting. And so a lot of people thought, Sit Down did a great review on it. A lot of people found it very interesting.
And and kind of as before, getting into Rise and Fall here, it was very sandboxy. Right. It was like you would start playing this and you're like, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. What should I be doing here? Like you really had to kick the tires a bunch of times to even have some semblance of what exactly I'm doing here on the map. And again, you could kind of like build an engine and like, did that actually result in points? Maybe not.
Right. But one of the central mechanics is you'd get a card that was your endgame scoring, but everybody would score it. And so one of the things you were doing is looking to see what everyone else is doing. And another thing you're doing is trying to mislead everyone else about what your scoring condition is. And there are like 15 or 20 different scoring conditions. So
that's
there's
fun.
A lot of variety in what you can do in the game.
I like that. So cut to 10 years, 12 years later, and Christoph Bollinger has a new game, Rise and Fall, 2 to 4 players. There is a solo expansion that you could get separately, which is not available at retail. None of us got. So we'll never know about that. BGG has it at a weight of 3.2, and it says it plays in 40 to 80 minutes, which I would say it's probably about 30 minutes per player. I think that's closer to what it would be. How do you feel about that?
I think as we play more, it might get faster. But
I think you can get a 4-player game in 2 hours, though, which is pretty damn good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. I did play 1 2-player game of this, and it was with the teach 30 minutes, which is
okay, sure.
Super fast.
Yeah, I think it does exponentially get faster with only 2 players. Yeah. Anyway, let us talk about what this game is. Jordan, do you want to tell us just a quick little explanation of what Rise and Fall is all about?
Sure. So at the start of Rise and Fall, all the players are going to collectively build a map. And they're going to do this to make the most interesting map. They're not sort of biased in the way the map is being built as they do it. They're going to make this really...
You may be playing that wrong, by the way.
You think so?
Yeah, there was a clarification on BGG this week that if you're doing... what do we call the powers?
I forget that. Yeah, whatever.
The asymmetric powers.
Yeah, if you do the asymmetric powers, you actually are supposed to
see those first.
See those before you build. I think it works either way.
Sure,
it's going to be different, but I think either one works.
Okay, so we can talk about that.
We've been building it we started just building interesting maps,
right?
And then we started building to prevent certain strategies that had been dominant in early plays,
right?
So there's an evolution in terms of how people are randomly, but we've ended up with maps that are very. Sorry, go ahead. We build the maps and they've ended up very differently.
They have ended up very differently. So yeah, you build these maps. There are 4 levels. There's water, plains, forest.
And let's not gloss over that. This is a 3-dimensional map where you're building up as much as you're building out, and you end up with a really interesting topographical-esque 3-dimensional map on your table.
Right, almost a diorama, sort of.
Yeah,
and the top level of it's probably like 2 inches above the lowest level of it.
It is stunning.
And more than in most other games where you build a map at the start of the game, the map is extremely impactful to this game.
Yeah.
Because all you're doing is moving your 6 different types of pieces around the map, and they can all do different things on different types of terrain. Some of them can move across water, some of them can't. Some of them can climb cliffs, which are, differences of 2 levels in the terrain, some can't. You can harvest resources from different types of terrain. Every group of terrain is going to be area scoring. So in any event, like the map really impacts the play,
right?
In a very dramatic way.
We all have built this map together, and then the game begins, and we all get this little box of wooden pieces, beautiful little wooden pieces, and we dump them out and we start lining them up, and we realize we have about 6 different types of pieces, from boats to caravans to merchants to cities to all these things. And we also have a little deck of cards, and each card correlates to a different type of wooden piece.
Right. 1 card per type of piece.
Exactly. And so this is, in a lot of ways, a Civilization-themed game. I would end it there. I do not think the mechanics are similar to any other Civilization game, but there's moments of it. I would say it's closer to something like StarCraft, but we'll get into that. But then you start, basically, everybody puts a city down, a
nomad and a ship.
A nomad and a ship on the board, and then the game begins, right? So you're going to have those 3 cards in your hand, 1 card for each of those types of wooden pieces you have on the board. And then those pieces, almost like a tech tree, can start spitting out other types of pieces. So on a card, it says each card will have a series of actions on them. And so when you play a card, and everybody's going to be playing a card simultaneously, then you flip them over, and then in turn order, you activate your card of all those types of pieces you have on the board. So if I play my city card, I get 1 action per city on the board, and I have a list of actions I can do for cities, and I can do 1 per city, and I can do different actions if I want for different cities. And some of those actions can be to create same units that you already have on the board or new units that you don't have on the board. And those new units will then allow you to take a card into your hand. And now you are doing actions for those types of units. So there's a bit of a tech tree where you can start expanding out, or you can decide to stay small. You can sort of go tall or go wide in this game. You can have lots of different units and have a big hand where you're doing lots of different actions with different things, or you can have lots of types of only a few types of pieces and be doing lots of actions every time you play a card. And what is the goal of the game? Trey, do you want to cover that? How do we actually get points? How do we win? What ends the game?
Okay, what ends the game, we're going to get into, what is it? There's achievements that we can claim, and then we actually have to start returning cards. I think that's a more complicated idea. On a more simple level, this is an area control game where the map will create various distinct zones that score based upon the type that they are. And generally, like, whatever is higher up tends to score more.
Plains,
like the plains are not very valuable. The
each.
sea's fairly valuable. The mountains, controlling a big mountain range is actually like the most important. And then at the end of the game, we're going to look and just compare unit strengths.
Yeah.
Like, I've got 1 unit, you've got 2, you win this.
All units are the same strength.
You get all the points for the mountain range because you have 2 units to my 1 here, Jordan. So you just got 60 points for this giant mountain range or something.
And the game ends by claiming these achievements. And the achievements are all claimed for the most part, except for a few special ones that will come out with the lore expansion. They will all be claimed by building all of one type of a unit.
Yeah.
So if the first person to build all their cities claims the city achievement, the first person to build all their nomads. So in a sense, you are sort of racing towards completing all of a certain type of unit on the board. But that will not win you anything other than potentially using those pieces to then populate different areas of the board to score more points in the area majority.
The achievements worth points.
Right. The achievements are worth points. Yeah, they are. They're not nothing. They're definitely part of the game. You're not going to win the game just with achievements. But that's the ticking clock of the game, is really how fast are people spitting out units will decide the length of the game. And so the more units you build, the shorter the game's going to be.
So you're engine building, but you're also, this unique map that you've built that's very different from game to game is going to have, like, understanding the geography of this particular game, and maybe we're playing with asymmetrical powers, means that you have to do a lot of analysis and then kind of like decide where are you going to devote your efforts. And this is one, fortunately, like, this game does play underneath two hours because like getting to a critical bottleneck and cutting off another player is definitely a thing. It's like Terra Mystica elevated, probably like another level where like a critical block in the game can kind of knock out an opponent, potentially. But it is that a lot of times that kind of we're racing to control certain things and blocking other people out. So there are some, even though it's rare that you're actually like combating and destroying units, there's a religious conversion thing that they kind of do instead, which actually ends up being tougher a lot of times. But you don't have units moving and fighting the way you kind of would in a standard war game.
No, this is not a combat game for the most part. Now,
but you are throwing some pretty sharp elbows in your fights over land, controlling land.
Let me talk. Let's name some games that are mean, and so you understand what we mean by mean. Not mean in the way that Jordan was to Paul in the TI4 game. Right.
Poor Paul.
But in the way where Age of Steam is mean to new players in the way that Barrage or Agricola or
those are tough systems.
Yes, but that are brutal in the sense that you can lose those games on first placement.
In my opinion.
And you can lose those games very easily by another player taking advantage of your weak play.
100%. I think the best comparison on this point is actually to a Splotter.
Yeah, 100%. Yes.
Because the rules aren't terribly complicated, but you can really mess up.
No, they're really elegant.
They're very elegant, right?
Yeah. And much like a Splotter, the person playing their first game won't just lose to the player on their third game. They will get destroyed purely by that small amount of extra knowledge. And then a player who's played 50 games will decimate a player who's played it 3 or 4 times. And at Game Brain, when a game like that comes to the table, we all lean in because those are usually the games we're very interested in.
100%.
Well, this game may be a little polarizing. Like we've had some, like I think we are some of the more enthusiastic about the game. We've also had a game where David, our friend David, hated this. Like just thought, I'm not even interested. Like just getting him to finish.
Right.
I wasn't there for that, so I can't speak to that.
Was tough, and I've had that reaction to games too. And like in some ways, this game I would think would not be my thing. And kind of, I think it surprised you a little bit, Matt, that I liked this.
I actually thought you were really not going to like it purely because of I feel like you often don't enjoy a game where there are so many opaque decisions in the first 30 minutes that no one would know on their first game. And I feel like you often can find that very I'm not going to invest the 20 plays that I need, but yeah, somehow it worked for you.
Somehow I got over.
This is a game though that I think requires an investment in order to really, because it's fresh. The first game it's like you're like, oh my god, I have no idea what to do, but I know there is a right move. You know there's a right move, and you cannot see it.
And I would say we've all played it 3 or 4 or 5 times. What are you at, Jordan? Here,
I don't know.
I'm at 4 or 5.
6. Okay, but even at 6. You look at this game and are you still humbled?
Oh yes,
like
absolutely.
There's still so much to understand.
Yeah.
This is almost like a negative of the game is like it's in danger of almost being an abstract strategy game, right?
That was the first thing I said when it came to the table. I was like, guys, this is like chess. This is barely I don't even know if I don't even actually know if I'd call this a Euro. This feels so old school to me, and so like this is the kind of game they don't make anymore. That scares off new players, that is humbling, that makes you feel really dumb, that you can end a player's game on turn 2. Like they don't make these games anymore, and it's a breath of fresh air to see a designer go like, whatever. Hopefully the gamers that like these kind of games will find it, and we did. And like this is my type of game. And honestly, I wish we got a lot more of games that felt like this, where games that you were just like, where you play and you go, oh, I know exactly who I should never play this with. Those people just instantly come to mind. And like, you're just
maybe, and for different reasons too, right?
But you also know, oh my gosh, I know who's going to love this. And like, and that, and that's, it's so, okay. So we've talked about, there's area majority. And I think on first blush, you look at this game and you go, this is an area majority game. And then after a couple plays, you realize something else. So the scoring in this game is so beautifully simple. You score all the different terrains at the end of the game. Whoever has the most of their color pieces on those sections of terrains get a certain amount of points. You get points for the achievements for putting out the most.
Score your cards.
You score your cards, which have a certain amount of points for how many of a type you've built of a unit.
And the units have different values, right? Ships, for some reason, are the most valuable. Nomads are the least.
You built them all, you get 25.
Right.
There's some logic there.
There's logic there
that eludes me.
But then the one thing that in many games you'd go like, okay, whatever. Maybe the most important part of the game, which is that money is 2 to 1. $2 is 1 point, and that you hear that when you're learning the rules. You're like, whatever, okay, fine.
That's a small scoring thing, right? This is my leftover.
Like, how many games have you played? Like, and at the end of the game, you're going to count up your money, you're going to divide by 3.
Exactly.
You're going to get points. It'll be some dumb little chump change. Like that's what you call it, chump change.
This is where the game went from pretty cool to maybe like a game I'll never stop playing. Was the fact that I found out the money was limited in the game. Now, some people may go like, well, that's annoying. Then it's a money race. Yeah, motherfucker.
Yeah.
It's a money race. This game is not, and I'm going to say this right now, this is not an area majority game. This is a economic,
probably be
money racing game. And it is who can get all the money in the bank first. And then at the end of that, whoever has the most also needs to be in a good position to get as many other points from the area majority and the achievements as well. And that person is who will win.
Maybe. I think you can not get the most money and win off terrain as long as you have some money.
No,
right?
as long as the map allows it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you will look at a map. The more experience you get of this game, you will look at a map and go, is this a money game? Is this a area control game? Or is this both?
And I want to add a new category in. Is this a rush game? Because in our last game, we came to this point where everyone was racing money and they were just cycling the same money cards over and over again. And afterwards, someone, I forget who it was, said, you know what? I could have just put out 2 more units and ended the game right now before everyone got all their money.
Not all units are created equal.
I think that was me.
It might have been you, yeah.
But I still pulled it out because we had a pretty competitive game, but it was close.
So there's 8 cities, I believe, and then there's I think 12 nomads.
There's 8 nomads.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how many cities there are.
But anyway,
About
there's the cats. There's only 3 cats.
3 cats. There's 6 merchants.
6 merchants, 5 boats, I think.
Boats.
So you could just focus on those. By the way, it's not easy because you need an engine to get wood and stone and all these things. You can build these units. There are a couple resources, and by a couple, I mean literally a couple. There's 2 resources in the game. There's wood and stone. And so, you can race the game, but and then if you're racing the game, it's an area majority game because there's not going to be enough time probably to set
Or it might even be a trophy game if you can really race it.
Yeah. But I just want everybody to know, money is so relevant in this game, and you can absolutely destroy somebody with what Paul called a degenerate strategy in our first game, where Jordan taught the rules, and I had a moment of going like, did he say it's 2-1? I already have like 20 points and I've done nothing, and you're saying this whole mountain range that you guys are spending the whole game fighting over is worth 18 points?
Right.
Wait a minute. And my boats can get me $8 every time I trigger that card.
Each boat.
Oh, and if I build 5 boats, that's $50 every time I play the card. And wait, if I get rid of all my cards except that card, I'm making $50 every round. And then Paul realized what was happening. Like everybody realized it at the same moment. And I was like, I had $400 in like 8 rounds. But Jordan still did very well.
No, you destroyed it. It was great.
But there was a moment where I was like, this is the most fun I've ever had, because it's like and it didn't feel like a degenerate strategy.
Totally.
Whatsoever.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, we just realized this game has a whole other lane.
And you know what? I think that this game is going to continue to present us with new lanes as we keep playing.
I totally agree.
And I discovered one today.
Ooh.
If you have just 1 card and players take 2 trophies in a single round,
you die.
You are eliminated from the game.
This rule has player elimination because
you can't buy it back.
You can only buy back 1 card per turn.
Right.
So there's this whole other element.
Let's just do it very quickly.
Yeah.
When somebody claims an achievement, which you only do by building all of one type of a unit, everybody has to take one of their cards in their hand and put it what's called into decline. Now that means you don't have that card unless you buy it back. And every achievement that is unlocked in the game makes the cost to buy your cards back higher. Remember, money is victory points. So like the last thing might cost you $40, 20 victory points to buy back a card, which is only going to win you 6 points for having that card or something. So you have these choices to make about what you're going to get rid of. But if at any time you do not have a card to put in decline in your hand, you are eliminated from the game. Thank God there's player elimination in games again. Like, please don't forget about this. It's fine. Other people can look at their phones. It's fine. It gives stakes. It's fun. And the game's it's not fun for a 6-hour game, but it's great for a 2-hour game.
Totally. And it feels like the kind of thing that was put in specifically to counter the strategy
down
to just one card, right?
That's right. And it was not at all obvious.
No.
But like now we know, okay, if somebody just got their ships going and the map supports it and they're cranking out the money and they're down to 1 card, it's like, oh, well, we can knock them out.
Yeah.
And that's there. I feel like it's almost a branding thing is wrong to call the money in the game. Like and again, I think this is more of a Civ game than you're maybe giving it credit.
Well, thematically,
it's
100%. It's just, there's not one bit of fighting in it. That's not it's hard to have a Civ game without there's no tech track.
The idea is that these turns are supposed to be over like a generation though, right? This isn't like If you were like to narrativize the timeline in this game, it would be a civilization like scope though, where you're not.
It is the scope of it, but I think the mechanics are closer to like a city builder. Like it reminds me a lot of this wonderful game called Against the Storm that I don't know if anybody knows, but is a fantastic indie city builder roguelike. Where you have to get the right amount of resources to build this building, and then that building unlocks this building, which allows you to gather this resource, which then allows you to build this building. There's 100% that element in this game where it's
streamlined.
Yeah, right. So I have a city that can create this unit. That unit then with 2 wood and 1 stone can build this unit. That unit then with 3 wood and $5 can build this unit. And that unit then I can then use to build this engine to get money and do and so it's like you have to figure out this crazy sort of building tech tree in your head. And then knowing all the actions they can all do as well add on to that. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing this game brought me back to early Sid Meier Civilization 2 kind of thing, which is that when we are starting the game, like in Civ 2, you have your own little corner of the globe or whatever, but you're looking at the map and you're kind of saying, what's the right place for a city? Like you're doing that here. You've got your city, you've got your nomad, you've got your ship, all of which those other 2 units can become cities. So you're really looking at like,
where do you want your 3 cities?
Where do I want my 3 cities to be? But you're starting the way you would start in Civ 2 or something like that with just a single settler or whatever. You're kind of starting with that bare bones thing. And then you have that civilization like exponential growth briefly until you start to bang into the other players, right? And you start to take risks of like, hey, can I just keep expanding here, or do I actually need to start playing some defense? There are civilization like,
or do I just race down a weird lane and try to get all these cats out to get that achievement quickly? And
but like if you don't protect yourself, like religious groups can come in and start converting, like place a temple right down next to your city, and they're converting all your units, and so like that city's dead. And
there's openings too. There's like this game has like openings. Like we're all in the city opening meta where I can't imagine a better play, but I'm sure there is a much better play. And I'm sure, it just seems like you have to open city.
Well, but you're like, we've leveled up a couple of times.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I'm excited.
In a game that probably has like 20 levels in, like it's very common in this game. This will be, you can make a wrong move and it will be a very big deal. And the wrong move might be really small, but some of it is just like, I put my nomad on a second forest. Like I don't have a supply of stone. Right. Just being able to have that basic formula of like, I need to be able to generate a wood and a stone here. That's going to be so there, like you said, there are openings, and like we have some basic openings.
I feel like we all sort of know where to place our units now much better than we did at the beginning. Like I feel pretty good about.
Yeah, I think we're still learning,
but I still feel like I know how to not destroy myself on placement, which I didn't know my first couple of games.
To me, this opening placement brings me back to the good old days of Catan. When I first got into board gaming, you'd set out the map, and you would look at it, you'd study it. Where do I go? Where are they going to go? How do I keep my supplies? How do I hurt their supplies? Oh, brick's going to be scarce this game. All of that is there, and even richer here, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then the following game is, much more enjoyable for us as modern.
So we've talked about the base game. I'm not going to call these expansions. It comes with 2 other modules for the game. One is asymmetric powers, which you draft at the beginning of the game, and they are wildly asymmetric. And they're sometimes meh, and they're sometimes, oh my God. And
a lot of it can depend on the map.
Right. But the drafting is also, exactly. And it's totally, some are super powerful on some maps and super useless on others. And the drafting is really fun because you get 3 cards, 3 asymmetric powers. You choose 1 to keep, you choose 1 to pass to an opponent on your left, and you choose 1 to discard. So everybody's going to get 1 they picked and 1 that an opponent picks for them. They're all good. There's no bad ones, but obviously your opponent's going to try to figure out what's the one they want you to have.
It's a great moment.
It's a really fun draft.
I remember I was like, I really don't want to pass either of these.
Right. And you end up taking the one you don't want to, one of the 2 you don't want to pass sometimes. Yeah.
Although I ended up passing you something that I thought was going to do really bad things to us, and then it ended up not being.
No, I didn't utilize it.
But it seemed. I think it was still a smart move because it was a card that would let Matt kill people, and it made everyone hate him. Right? Exactly. Right.
And I never used it because nobody got anywhere near me.
Right.
No, it's actually like a good card to give somebody because I think it actually like made me like sprayed me with skunk.
Totally. He saw you as a threat.
Yeah.
Because this game will, have a little bit of that TI4 thing to it, which is that there is a social game being played above the table a little bit, right? Like there was a lot of discussion in our last game about, and it originated from you, my friend, of we need to stop Trey.
That's true. You were crushing us.
Right. But I'm like, that's fine. It is one of those games where it's kind of like, guys, we need to collectively, we need to stop Trey or else we should stop playing.
That's not what I said at all.
Well, but you were correct. I wasn't convinced I was actually that far ahead, but you had assessed it actually better. You had assessed my position better than I had, or whatever. And you were right. Like people, if they wanted to have a chance at winning, the rest of the table needed to gang up against me. It can be that kind of game. The game's going to be won socially sometimes.
Yeah, perhaps. So I will say I don't think it's a end the game situation. It's just we need to. But
I would never accuse
Trey,
you of acting like Paul.
Thank you. But you controlled a few areas that were extremely valuable with like 1 or 2 units, and we weren't. They were kind of far flung areas that were hard to access.
Cliffs,
and there were cliffs, and they were on the far end of the board.
Had allowed me to get onto areas that should have been inaccessible.
Right,
because Paul had actually kind of made a lot of the areas inaccessible because he was
in the map building. Which was fine. I mean, that's interesting.
He was pulling certain levers, and then it worked out well for me.
So there are the asymmetric powers, which we have discussed. And then the other element is what's called the lore module, which is at the beginning of the game, you are going to take this big deck of lore cards, and not totally different to arcs. You're basically going to put one of these cards out per player that's going to change the game. In arcs, obviously, you're giving people different asymmetric powers and things, but like this is as game changing of like, oh, that's what this game is. So you're going to put out 4 basically. Each one is going to be like a module unto itself. Like you're going to have. So if you have 4 players, you're going to have 4 modules that you're adding, and each one's going to tell you to add specific tiles to the map when you're building the map, or it's going to put new pieces on the board, or it's going to add new achievements to the board, sometimes all of these things. And it's going to potentially, in some games, be like, oh, that's an interesting new way to get resources or points, or, oh my God, all that matters now is this, and the entire game is about this. Or, I mean, they're really interesting. The designs are really cool. Some of them are wildly complicated. Some of them are super simple. Some of them come with beautiful dragons that sit on tops of mountains, or a bridge that will connect 2 pieces of land across water. Really cool mini designs they came up with those, and they're all made out of wood, which is really special and cool. But basically, this has the potential of making. Not only are you never going to play the same map twice, you will never play the same game on the same map twice.
Yeah. And there are 30 of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they interact in different ways too. So, in the last game we played, 2 of them removed a bit of planes from our board.
Yeah.
So our board was just drastically different. And, both of them did that. They sort of exacerbated that fact. And, and then like you said, like we had banks in our last play. That we only played with these modules once. We played with these banks, and the banks had this interesting mechanic where if you build a bank, it makes your cities able to generate more money.
Yeah.
But the minute of the final player builds a bank, shortly thereafter, there'll be an economic collapse and all the banks are removed from the map. And so it became this question of, I think it was Paul who hadn't built a bank.
Yeah.
Is Paul going to build a bank? Is it worth it for him to take out our banks?
Right.
That kind of thing. And it's really interesting.
And we literally broke the bank in that game where all the money went out because the bank speed up the money for everybody.
Yeah.
And we had the bank went empty at a certain point, and then it was like, okay, now let's see who can do the best.
And it made forests more important, right? Just, by virtue of the way that module works. So it's really interesting.
We're always being put, like with this game, we're always going to be being put in to the headspace of how is this particular game different? We have a baseline knowledge of how the game is supposed to work. It's inadequate, but we have some knowledge. And then we're going to have a number of curveballs that we're going to have to kind of integrate with the player powers and these different terrains. That's always going to be an interesting question. And I'm super excited to explore the different spaces here. And I've been on the other side of this in certain games where, hey, we're in the era of Kickstarter. And so the extra thing this and extra thing that, and here's a bunch of modules that you can play with or not play with. And usually I just want no part of that. I want to be like, no, tell me what's the game? What's the game we're supposed to be playing here? Yeah. And for whatever reason, it's done correctly here, where the base game was really good, but I almost think that's how you learn. You got to learn. You got to play the base. I don't know if we would play with these things if we were introducing a new player, 4 new players. Would you want them to play with the expansion? I'm not sure.
I'd probably throw one in, maybe not both. I'd probably do either. I don't know. It depends.
I would do just the base game.
It depends on the players.
But for whatever it's worth, the modules here all feel interesting, and I can't wait to explore all these different crevices in this game.
That's an interesting point, Trey, because I also hate when a game comes with 9 modules and they're like, it's up to you what you play with. I'm like, no, just tell me. But this does that for me, because now they're supposedly what they're basically telling you with this is they're all balanced around each other. You pick a bunch of random ones, and the players will figure it out. And I love that. That's actually, I would love if all games that had modules, instead of just telling me what the game is, allowed me to, they all worked perfectly. Because they always say if you're playing with module A, you can't play with module 7. If you're not playing with module 8, you can't play with module 3. And it's I'm going to play with none of them now.
Yeah, it's great. And as you point out, it solves the problem in the same way ARCS does, where it says, these are the characters we're going to play in this game. You get to know them. And this is the game we're going to play. And it's going to have a limited amount of craziness because only this many different things are in.
That's right.
And you could also get to a point, if you really learn the modules and you think some don't balance well with each other or whatever, you could do a draft. You could put out 6 modules and say, okay, the last player eliminate 1, and then the next player eliminate 1, and we're going to play with those 4.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
It feels a lot like ARCS in that way, where after a few games of it, I looked at both of those boxes and my mind was blown by just how much game is in that box. Oh my, it's one of those games where you're like, I don't need as many of the other games that I have anymore. There is so much game to be explored in here. And it almost feels like a lifestyle game or a system.
Yeah, it feels like a game that you could endlessly explore.
Yeah.
And we've been comparing it a lot to ARCS, and I think this is my second favorite game of the year after ARCS at this point. But I also want to say we're not sure yet about the balance or the polish of.
No, but I also think there's.
Oh yeah, but I also
think there's so many games
Yeah.
until we get there to even really know. Yeah,
I'm not saying
it's
I care.
Such
I'm
an
just saying
interesting system that I agree. I looked at some of those powers and I'm like, this doesn't seem very good. And I'm also when they put out this here's 30 different powers, of course they're going to be imbalanced. Sure. But I don't know. I'm not worried about it so much. I think we're all gushing on this because we of our group, we found the audience. I mean, some people still need to play. Ben hasn't played this yet.
He played once, I think.
Oh, has he now?
Yeah.
Okay, since I last talked to him. So we're the converted here. There have been some negative reactions. I don't think this is a game for everyone.
Oh.
But I do think the people that find this could be a game that you want to play for a long, long time.
But I really respect a game that doesn't want to be for everyone.
Yeah,
totally.
And to be fair, we play so many games that today feel scared to not be for everyone. And that's not how you make good art for the most part. There are incredible masterpieces in the gaming world that work for everyone. And that's a miracle. But to try to achieve that with games that shouldn't necessarily be simplified or complicated in order to get a larger audience is often you're losing what's special about your game. And I think this is a game that feels uncompromised in that way, where it's just no, this is the best version of this. And I don't know if anybody's going to like it that isn't the designer. And the designer just put it out there. And I really hope it finds its audience. I really want people to check this game out. It's not getting the attention that, to me, this is an ARCS level game of the year in terms of wow. What a design. What an incredible monument.
I would also the one reason also people should think about this, and maybe this is kind of superficial, but I think this may be when you think of a game with table presence, I think this may be the most impressive table presence game I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I can't think of a game if you're walking past this game at a convention, you're going to stop and
and take a look and say, what's that?
Once the whole map is filled and all the pieces are out, it is the most impressive board game the most visually impressive board game I've ever seen, ever.
Yeah.
By a lot.
I agree. And that comes from someone who backed the 3D Barrage map.
Yeah, it looks better than Kingdom Death with all your painted minis, and this is just more impressive than that. You've never seen. It looks like it really looks like some beautiful computer generated 3D model in front of you, and it also just looks like this, like a beautiful terrain map, like you'd see at a museum, of the area of the museum's in. Like, here's what everything looks like topographically. It's just so fascinating to look at.
And we're suckers for the wooden meeple aesthetic.
Yeah.
And it just looks so good.
Well,
and they're all like multiple pieces of wood.
So much better
together.
for the environment. And also, it just looks so much. Everything looks like gray plastic minis. And it's nice to not have gray plastic pieces.
Well, you won't anymore. Why? Now that you're painting.
Now that they're going to be colorful plastic. Yeah, I know. The person who's like, it's good for the environment, as he buys giant sprues of fucking orcs. Yeah, ridiculous. So yeah, that's Rise and Fall. Look, I'm going to be honest. It's not easy to come by at the moment because there was a Kickstarter and they're in that weird little in-between zone between the Kickstarter and it finding a retail. So, my best bet would be to try to find one on the second market right now. Maybe the BGG marketplace, somebody who didn't like it so much who's selling it. I still have not found any way to buy it.
There's two
retail.
versions.
Right. There's two color paths.
Right. So the games are the same. There's one version with 4 colors and one version with different 4 colors so that you can combine them for an 8-player game, which I'm going to be honest with you, sounds amazing, but also I'm not super interested.
Got to do it once. I want to do it once.
It's like playing Mega Civilization on Saturday sometime.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I don't know how. I still feel like it'd be it's not going to be that different.
It would be tedious.
Yeah, it would be a lot. But
I might want to do it once.
Yeah. I mean, imagine how big the map.
Imagine how
cool
the map. The map would look cool.
cool.
The map would look really cool.
Go and take pictures.
But then you'd be like, oh, the guy down there a mile down won the game. Oh, good for him.
Well, imagine a giant ocean in the middle of the map.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be crazy.
Just sail your ship right.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody, Be like, you got to move chairs. It'd be pretty cool. That's Rise and Fall 2024. I agree with Jordan. As of right now, it is my second favorite. My third favorite being Railways of the Lost Atlas. Probably is my 3 favorite. That and Arcs. But yeah, we haven't. Guys, Essen is in a week. Right. Who knows how many great games we haven't played yet? Who knows how many games we're going to play once, and then I'm going to be like, why did I spend so much money importing that from France? That was annoying. But yeah, that was it. That was Rise and Fall. That's our gaming. Anybody have anything else they want to talk about?
Well, let's get out of here.
All right, let's get out of here. Let's go play some games. You've been listening to The Game Brain, a board game podcast about our gaming group. Produced by Matt Robinson, Tom Donnelly, Trey Alsip, Ben Mandelker. Incredible music by our lovely member, Daedalus. And that's it. Go play some games with friends, or go make some friends with games.
Love you, Paul.